Oh my goodness. This lady, I want to say blast from the past because it seems so long ago, but I don't think it is that long ago. How are you, my gorgeous lady?
Oh, probably a lot older and wiser than when we last spoke, Vanessa. But yeah, I'm still here. I'm still trying to do what we do. Still chipping away is what I would say.
Still chipping away. So we had a brief talk before we pressed the record button. So for people that do not know who you are, obviously I know who you are because you're like you know, yeah,
Oh,
everyone knows in the studio who you are because I go on about you. So tell everybody you are Maggie Oliver, but who are you? Why? Talk to me about in the very beginning. So just literally
yeah.
why you are who you are.
Well, I always say I'm just an ordinary woman because I am. I'm a widow. My husband, the love of my life, died. It's 18 years ago now. 18 years, but I've got four children who I love. I've got two little grandsons. My little granddaughter died before she was three, and I'm soon to have another little granddaughter. So I mention that because that really is who I am. That is who I am. And when I was 41, I joined the police. So it was already really unusual. And I joined the police because I wanted to make a difference. I do believe in justice and I do want to help people. And I spent 16 years in the police. And then for the second time, I saw children who were victims of horrific abuse, um, repeated abuse by what are now known as grooming gangs, being failed by, it was actually Greater Manchester Police. And on the second time I saw it, 8 months into that job, when the girls that had put their trust in me were turned away from, I decided that this time I couldn't stand by and do nothing. So I thought I would go to prison because I was threatened by, I spent 18 months as a serving police officer trying to get my voice heard.
Yeah.
And in the end, they didn't want to listen. They told me that what I knew was confidential. I must not speak about it. But I resigned and I went public. I did file on 4. I then was constantly talking out about what had happened. I worked as the program consultant on the drama Three Girls. I wrote my own book and I was going under. I was worn out. This was about 2017, 18. I went in Celebrity Big Brother.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot that.
Yeah, so that
Oh,
was the only on the journey, really.
yeah. God help the Big
Yeah,
Brother. Yeah.
that was great. No phone, no papers, no emails. It was amazing. And then I just thought, you know what? I'm burnt out here. I can't do this on my own anymore. I know what I'll do. I'll start a charity. And then I don't have to do anything. Well, that was 4 years ago. And I don't think I've ever worked as hard as I am currently. I still do want to take a step back, and really just be the voice of the foundation. But we're not quite at that point. But we've gone from me and 2 trustees, which was where the foundation started.
And that's where we were starting, wasn't it? When I
Yeah,
got to know you after reading the book and then
yeah,
reaching out to you and then having this conversation, because
yeah,
obviously we deliver safeguarding training, and that's how we got started talking, you mad woman. And it was it was just like these conversations that we were having. But it is that whole when you started, it was I remember that we've just got I think it was 2 volunteers and yourself. That's
yeah,
when you started the Maggie Oliver Foundation.
yeah, it was. And now I have a team now of, I think, 7 staff. I think we've got the number of volunteers, we call them ambassadors, varies, but it's normally about 25.
Those ambassadors, are they the ones that support?
Yeah, they're amazing.
Okay.
They are amazing. they come to us because they know, really most of them come because they know who I am and what I stand for.
Yep.
And many of them are survivors who want to help somebody else because they're in a better place. So they apply. We have a really strict process to bring them on. So they do
Engage them. Yeah.
yeah, they do 2 interviews. We do social media checks. We do DBS checks and reference checks. And then when they are through that process, we then put them through training before they are able to go on the phone support. Once they are on the phone support, Charlene, who is our wonderful emotional support manager, she will link up if a survivor comes to us and wants somebody to talk to about what's happened to them. Charlene will match that survivor with one of the ambassadors that she thinks will be right. So we've got, you know, head teachers. We're not a counselling service, but we do have counsellors. We have head teachers. We have nurses. We have a couple of university students. We have people who are at home. A whole selection of people, but their values are that they don't judge, that they are kind and they listen, and they will do their very best to help a broken person who is a survivor begin to look ahead instead of constantly back. But the value of what we do really, Vanessa, is that we, like, for instance, the Samaritans, somebody will ring the Samaritans or rape crisis, and they'll speak to somebody on the phone, maybe for an hour. They'll put the phone down, and if they want to speak again next week, they will get a completely different person. And what that means is that every week they have to relive the abuse, because that new person doesn't know their history.
There's no continuity.
No, and there is no trust. There's no trust built up. By keep repeating that same chapter of actually the abuse, it keeps it alive in their head. And, you know, and I firmly believe, and all the feedback that we get, and we have got hundreds of pieces of feedback now saying that our service is unique, and it is that continuity of an ambassador, the same one that they speak to week in and week out, that makes the difference. And yet when we started to operate this way, I was contacted by senior police officers, by other charities, by other people who said, you will encourage dependency in a victim. And my take on it was always that isn't a bad thing. That is a good thing, because many survivors have had nobody that they can trust. They may never have spoken to anybody in their life. And what they want is somebody that's going to hold their hands while they make sense of it. And we try and build them up to look ahead. And when they're coming towards the end of their 8 weeks initial set of calls, if they need more, we'll give them another 8. Or they can drop back and go away and come back again. Or we will signpost them perhaps to a local organisation near where they live, where they can maybe go in person. And actually, Vanessa, you're talking about when we met, which was in Manchester at your conference.
Yes, it was.
Well, yes, it was. Well, the lady who runs our outreach service was a lady that I met at your conference.
No way.
Yeah, Julia, she is amazing, and she worked in early years. And her daughter, she won't mind me saying, but her daughter was herself horrendously groomed and abused, and tragically her daughter died a couple of years ago. That's a long story, but she connected with us and she became a volunteer, and she worked on the phone support side. And then I asked her last year whether she would like to come on board as a member of staff part-time, and she is just wonderful. And yeah, so I'm a big believer in a little bit in karma, but in the right people finding you. And from my team, obviously all the ambassadors come because they've heard me, you know, going on with myself, and believe the same sorts of things. But the staff, all began their journey with us as a volunteer. And then when we got funding, we have been able to then employ them, because volunteers are phenomenal, but you can't run an organisation like ours with volunteers. So everybody except for one person, who is now our chief exec, were volunteers and are now staff members. We're shortly bringing in one other member of staff to join the legal advocacy side of the foundation. So I don't know if I've rambled there, but
no, that's cool. That's good, because listening to that compared to us having this conversation a very long time ago is like, oh my goodness me, look how that's grown. How has your role changed in that then? Because it's hard, isn't it? Because you've got to be, we talked about this, is the foundation is named, that is your name. You have to be the face of that foundation, the face of that charity.
Yeah.
So what would you say? I know you're going to laugh at me and say, what's your role, Maggie? What do you do, Maggie?
Oh, well, apart from not having a life. I'm the chair. Officially, I'm the chair, and I am also the voice of the foundation. So I do a lot of media. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I don't. I say I don't get involved with the survivors who come to us, and on the whole, I don't. But many of them initially approach us through my social media, and then I will point them towards our email. Really, if somebody needs help, is help@themaggieoliverfoundation.com. So I'll point them in that direction. Many of them who are supported on the emotional side, and quite a lot who are supported on the legal advocacy, I don't necessarily then know the intricate detail of their cases. But we do have at least weekly team meetings, and I'm on the phone pretty much every day about certain things. But there are some cases that are either high profile or very complex, or that we need to share in the media to highlight where the failures in the system are. And in order for me to do my job in the middle, because I call it, we have the emotional support, the legal advocacy, and in the middle, I call it a force for change. And the real way to get change is to educate the country on what is going on, and to shame those authorities who are failing victims to pull their bloody socks up and do something better. So my role in the middle is dependent on having up-to-date information about what's going on today. Because in any media interviews that any of your listeners will hear about abuse, about rape, about grooming gangs, chief constables and senior social workers and the CPS will always be insistent that things are now better, that these are problems of the past. And I can tell everybody listening that they are not. And I said to you, but I would recommend watching Catching My Rapist from ITV on Monday night, which was the 17th of July. It's on ITV iPlayer. That is a typical case that we deal with. And Kate, who is the lawyer in that programme, is one of my trustees in the foundation. So that's our bread and butter. But the vast majority of victims and survivors who are being failed will not get a platform like that to tell their story. My job is to make sure that every one of those has a voice. So whether it is on a media platform, or whether it is by sharing their story on our website, on Survivor Stories, I want victims and survivors to feel, number one, they're not alone. Number two, we are alongside them fighting their corner. We're not always successful, but we do our absolute best. And if we feel that there is nowhere to go with their case, we'll be honest with them and explain why. But that still doesn't stop them from having their voice heard. So that's really how the foundation is divided. But the cases are becoming more complex, I would say. We tend to attract victims and survivors who have often tried many other routes, and then they come to us because I think they see us as, if anybody is going to help them, we might be able to. So we do our best, but it's always challenging, and it's really draining, because it's so complex. But we are building some really positive relationships with some police officers, but with some police forces as well.
That's good, because that wasn't the case so many years ago.
And I would say, Vanessa, though, it's still the exception rather than the rule. But I do believe that that is the way to push through change. So, for instance, in Greater Manchester, where I'm known for the Rochdale case, really, and the drama covered the Rochdale case, the trial was in 2012. So 10 years on, so last April, I was able to take 3 of the original Rochdale girls who were massively failed to a personal meeting with the Chief Constable in GMP, where he personally apologised to them. They were paid compensation for all the trauma they've been put through. They were given a letter, and Stephen Watson, who is the new Chief Constable, he's a couple of years in now, but he did a press conference where he publicly acknowledged that the handling of that Rochdale case by GMP was borderline incompetent. Wow. Now, that, for me, was a monumental success. Yeah. And my disappointment, my horror is that it took 10 years to get that. I had been fighting with those girls for 10 years. That's 10 years of their lives, 10 years of my life, 10 years of the truth being the truth. What he apologised for was absolutely no different than what I had said to the old Chief Constable 10 years ago. And yet, consistently, I was described as this woman who had lost the plot. I was too emotionally involved. They'd done a fantastic job. Am I allowed to swear?
You can swear.
It was complete bullshit. And that acknowledgement publicly and that apology, not only has it changed those girls' lives, it really allowed me to let go of that, because
that was what we said earlier about the next chapter.
Yeah, I've let go of that case.
Yeah.
The problem is, Vanessa, that had I not got a grip of that case and spent 10 years exposing those failures on a massive public platform, those 3 girls would never have got that apology. And the one that really gets to my heart is always, well, it's all 3 of them, but Amber, who was put on an indictment as a paedophile. She was 15 years old, and it was her treatment that horrified me, because she was treated like a piece of meat. And to see her get that letter in which it says, you are a victim. We have now recorded all the dozens of rapes that you were subjected to. They'd never been recorded. Nobody was ever arrested. Nobody was ever interviewed. And then in secret, she was portrayed as a paedophile. Now, to hear the Chief Constable say that shouldn't have happened, to have her receive compensation, she never did it for the money. But for me, I shouldn't have had to fight that 10-year battle.
No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. Why do you think then that the previous Chief Constable or whoever was in charge at the time brushed it? Why did they do that? Why did they not see it? You had all this evidence, you were fighting their corner. Why did they not think, actually, is there some truth in this? Or did they know the truth, but they actually just literally swept it under the carpet and just said, No, yeah, no.
Yeah, the last
Yeah.
point you made, they knew, but people in these high positions are powerful people.
I know.
They are extremely powerful people, and the only reason that achievement happened, that result, that we had that result, was actually because I wouldn't let it go, and because I managed to
I always
expose.
say that about you. Once you're like a dog with a bone.
But when
That's
you know,
true. You
when
didn't need that though.
but I saw firsthand what it did to that girl.
Yeah, I know.
And that's what drives me on, even though I'm exhausted in many ways and it's frustrating. And there are always people trying to, make a quick score points at my expense, the foundation's expense. They have their own agendas, and I've put my head above the parapet. There are plenty of people wanting to knock us down. That goes with the territory. But if I can't stand the heat, knowing that there's so many people that share my beliefs, then how on earth is a survivor or a victim going to fight that on their own? So when I have bad days, and there's been quite a few recently, I just think it goes with the territory. If you're going to rattle cages, you're going to have to kind of take on what comes at you. And the way I deal with it is that I know in my heart and soul that I always do my best, that I always tell the truth as I see it, even if somebody doesn't agree with me.
Yeah.
I won't try and pretend. I'll say what I think, whether people agree or not. I don't try and hide that, and I'll explain why I feel how I feel, but it's based on my experience and what I've seen. And my only wish is to see victims and survivors treated with human decency, with compassion, with respect, to be communicated with, not to be blamed because they're an easy target. And those things far too often are not what victims experience from the police and from the criminal justice system. So we're going at it in a three-pronged, really.
Yeah.
Some people disengage or don't even want to go down a prosecution route, and I fully understand why they wouldn't, because it's brutal, and they just want emotional support to deal with what's happened to them, and to begin to move forward. So they would just go for emotional support. I mean, we had one lady of 84 recently, another lady of 72. Neither of them had ever spoken about what happened to them as children. But the fact that they felt safe to come to us, for me, is a massive step, and they have, we do a survivor ball now once a year. We do the fundraising ball, which you've been to, Vanessa.
Yeah.
But 2 years ago, we began a survivor ball. So all those survivors that we have supported are invited. We don't advertise it. We don't make money. We try. I mean, I even got donated ball gowns so that they, people who couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere and the joy in that room, you know what? It is unbelievable, because every person in that room has traveled a similar journey. And yet, until we've brought them together in that room, many have never even met another victim or survivor of a grooming gang or abuse or rape. And they feel empowered. And that makes it worthwhile. But even on that, we are being challenged about doing it, that we've got vulnerable people there and they're at risk. Well, what I would say is that, everybody who comes knows they're all adults. They might be vulnerable. They are vulnerable, or they were vulnerable.
Is there a case of going to it and knowing that they're entering somewhere where they're not going to be judged, the people that they're going to be with actually have experienced what they've gone through.
Yeah.
And it's that open thing of having those conversations where they feel safe, that safe, secure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. And actually, Vanessa, giving them the respect that they are able to make their own decisions. When I mean, I'll bring in the Oldham Review, which is a real powder keg. I never worked in Oldham, but I supported the key victim in the centre of that case. Many other victims, she's called Sam, and I'm not speaking out of turn because she has she wanted to have a voice, but the review team were told by Oldham Council, for instance, that Sam must not be approached because she was suicidal. She did not want to speak to the review team. Well, that wasn't true. They were silencing her because they didn't want her voice heard. But because she already knew me, she came to me. I went to the review team and I said, she wants to speak to you. Unfortunately, at that point, and she was interviewed, and hers was the only voice captured within that whole review. Every other victim of Oldham was silenced. Their voice was in there, but in a format, and the information in there had been provided by the police and the council. Now, for me, that is insulting. It is controlling. It is an abuse of power. So if a survivor or a victim does not want to be heard or doesn't want to come to our survivor ball, allow them the respect of listening to what they want.
Yeah.
Do not make a choice for them. I would never put any pressure on anybody to tell their story. But there are so many people out there who want to be heard. It doesn't mean they want to waive their anonymity, but it means that they want their story to be heard. And I feel it is insulting in the extreme to try and take that choice away from them. But I also believe that it is an abuse of power because those at the top want to silence those voices so that they can't speak the truth. That's how I see it.
And it's almost like, they've been abused before, and actually you're just bringing it back again and abusing again in a different way. You're intimidating, you're actually using those powers, which is what you just said.
Yeah.
Because you know that these people are vulnerable, and
Yeah.
you're going to use those powers, which is wrong. Don't bring it all, recycle it and actually turn that. And that's where it's going wrong.
That is where it's going wrong, Vanessa. And the people, many of the people who make these decisions about somebody's life might be closing a case down for the wrong reasons, whether they're inexperienced, whether they're lazy, whether they're not trained, whether they're incompetent, whether the resources are not there. The outcome is that the victim feels they are not being heard. And as I say, a prosecution, if the evidence isn't there in these cases, isn't always possible, but that doesn't mean you don't treat that victim with respect.
Don't listen.
And it doesn't mean that you try and silence them and prevent them telling their story. So I know that we challenge a lot of people who are very powerful, and it does take its toll. But the alternative is that those voices go unheard, because I have got a platform. I do have some really good contacts in the media, and we don't get every case out there, but we've done some really good work with Channel 4, File On 4, Sky, GB News. I'm not in any way party political. I try and talk to on any platform, because you reach a different audience on every platform.
Totally. There's totally.
So, I don't want to censor anybody's questions or comments, or ask me whatever you choose, and I will answer to the best of my ability. You might not agree, but I will never try and conceal the truth of what I think and what we're doing and why we are trying to do this. And you know, if anybody wants to go to our website,
That's what I was going to put. How can, one of my questions was, if where can people find you? How can they help? So
yeah,
where is it?
The website www.themaggieoliverfoundation.com. I've got LinkedIn and a Facebook page, got a Twitter. You know, my Twitter, I don't really go on there very much, but they can go to there. If somebody would like to receive our quarterly newsletter, you can sign up on the website as well. But if you go onto the website, you will see a section where we share survivor stories. We share on the newsletters and on the website feedback from people we've helped. We've got hundreds of pieces of feedback now. We also have paid for 3 groups to go through a 12-week group therapy course with an experienced trauma psychotherapist. You know, we really do our best.
I will put the website on this when we share this on our social media platform. We will do that.
Say as well, while I'm talking about the website, there is a section there, Vanessa, if somebody would like to donate. Maybe even £5 a month, or if you wanted to do an event for us, or I do go and speak at conferences sometimes, and people make donations to the foundation. So there are lots of ways. Or if somebody would like to become a volunteer, you can apply on the website. There are lots of ways to help, and really just share. If you follow me on the social media, maybe share the stories that I post. I tend to not say a lot. I'll share a story, or a survivor story, or a news story, and I'll put a little comment, and that's pretty much what I do. I don't go trolling through Twitter, because it's a nasty.
You don't do it.
Don't need to. I know people. Some people don't like me, but it goes with the territory. So my friends do, and my kids do, and at the end of the day, that's what I care about.
I do every time I speak to you, you give me goosebumps.
Oh, thank you.
You're amazing.
I mean, it is draining. I'm not going to lie, but I'll give you get things then though, Vanessa, that give you that boost, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a little exclusive now, right? And I would love it to be available on this day, but I was talking about Amber, wasn't I?
Yes, you were.
And Amber's story, or the story of Rochdale, was told in the drama Three Girls.
Yes, it was.
But what the drama did, it retold the way she was treated and portrayed. What it never did was put that falsehood and those lies right. And I have to say that the drama affected her very badly, because she was played as though she was a perpetrator.
Yeah, it did.
It did, and that wasn't how it was. So that is why the apology was so monumental, and the admission that she was a victim, and that all her rapists had now been, all her rapes have now been recorded, and she can reopen that case if she ever wanted to. She doesn't, but she could. But after the apology last year in April, for the very first time, she gave an interview. I took her, we were there about 5 hours, and she told her story to a journalist. We recorded it all, and it was published, but it's difficult in one article to cover all of this. But I was approached last year by a filmmaker to say, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying, that she herself is a survivor.
Yeah.
And she came to me and said she would like to make a short film, possibly about the Rochdale case. And she'd read my book and about Amber. So we talked to her, and we've been working with her. So I approached Amber and I said, how would you feel if we work on a short film to show your side of what happened? And God bless her, as always, she agreed to let us even, show her story yet again. And so we've been working with this filmmaker for about 9 months. And last Friday, I took Amber for the first time to watch this 10-minute film, the preview. I'd seen it once, and I took her on Friday. My daughter came as well because they're very close now.
How is your daughter?
Yeah, oh, you met her.
Yeah.
She's great. She's doing well.
Good.
So Amber saw the film, and I ended up I don't cry often, but I ended up in floods of tears. She was so emotional, and she has, given the green light to that little film. So we're doing an invited audience public screening in October. Yeah. But the idea then is to take that film, firstly enter it into some film, not exhibitions, film festivals.
Yeah.
I want to take it into police forces, into schools, into social services, because that shows the 10 years after that case was supposedly this fantastic success. And anybody watching that cannot fail to question why this child was put through another 10 years of hell. So a day like that, and actually to lighten the moment for her, we actually then went to Coronation Street afterwards.
I saw that. Yeah.
So I didn't want her to go home thinking about the film. So we went for lunch, and then we went on the Corrie set, and she met some of the actors, and it was she was really excited. So that day now she will forget about the film and her abuse. She will talk to everybody about Corrie. So,
but the thing is, what you've done as well, what she has done is she's shared her voice, and that's the whole purpose of it.
Massively. And you know what, Vanessa, every word in that short film is Amber's words, because the interview that she gave last year, the 5-hour interview that we were in, she gave me permission to give that audio tape to the filmmaker, and the filmmaker has only used her words in this documentary. And it's spine tingling, really, really emotional. But I want
to say to her for actually saying she was willing to do it.
She is unbelievable.
Yeah,
she is unbelievable.
One strong person to actually go to relive it and keep going with it, but actually having the balls to go, I've got a voice now, and I need to share.
But you know what? This journey is why she is recovering.
Yeah.
Being heard, but the apology last year, and then last December, I took her to London, and she actually won the Emma Humphreys Prize for holding the state to account. And for the very first time ever, she was with me, but she's been with me other times, and she never says who she is. For the very first time in December, she agreed to come to the front with me afterwards, and she said a few words to the audience. She admitted who she was, and I think she felt really, really proud of what a difference she has made in raising awareness of how kids are failed. That is what is helping her to move forward. And really, that, I guess, that is what I wanted to do for every victim who comes to us, who doesn't have a voice, who is being blamed, who is being judged, who is being fobbed off. That shouldn't happen. And, we'll not be able to do what I've done for Amber for every victim. But for every victim, we can give them a voice. And that is probably the best that we can do. And hope.
But actually, you need to take hold of that, because when you have those shit days, when you have those bad days where you just think, oh my God, what am I doing? You need to remember that, because if it wasn't for you, Amber wouldn't be where she is now. So you need to take hold of that. And I know you're not one to blow your own trumpet, and nobody really not many people are, but what I'm saying is you need to take that and think, okay, I totally hear what happened with her, you know, growing up was just horrific, absolutely horrific. But it's taken 10 years, and now that it's that whole time again of you turning it around. And actually, do you know what you've done is you've been that, what you were saying about your ambassadors, they're being consistent, you're being consistent with Amber. So actually you're actually being that role model for your ambassadors.
And that's, you know, because it's not forced, Vanessa. It is
No,
it is who I am, and it is how everybody should treat these kids. I think the scary thing for me, as the foundation has grown, when it's just me, you know, I can say and do. I know exactly what I'm saying, exactly what I'm doing, and I will always defend my actions and explain why I've done them. When you grow a team of now, you know, about 40 people, I can't know everything that everybody says and does.
yeah,
So it only takes one of them to say something or do something that would undermine not only the foundation, but my reputation as well.
yeah.
So that's what makes me feel vulnerable in a way. We do everything we can to make sure that, you know, we check everybody, they're all trained, we think we've got fabulous people, and we do. But there is always a risk that somebody could say something, and then it'll be, you know, oh, such and such, the Maggie Oliver Foundation, this and that and the other.
No, I get that.
You know, and that is scary because I've come this far, and I value the public support and actually their respect. That's what's made me, that's what helped me to recover.
Yeah.
And I don't want to risk that now and throw myself back into a dark place either, because I'm aware that that could happen, you know.
It's a trigger.
Yeah, it's still scary sometimes, and it's been a pretty tough 10 days. So you're probably getting me on a day when I wouldn't, when I'm saying this, maybe 3 weeks ago I wouldn't have. But that's the nature of what we do, you know. It's ups and downs and
Yeah,
good and, but all I know is that we are doing our best. We are taking on perhaps the most difficult cases that exist because nobody else will touch them. And alongside that comes a risk.
but that's everything, isn't it? You've got to do that. And actually, if you don't
yeah,
take that risk, and you've always taken that risk, if
yeah,
you don't take it, you can't go forward.
I
I
have.
just want to, I just think you're amazing. You know I do. And, you know, we message each other on either Messenger or text every now and then. And it's times like this, I think, oh gosh, you know, I wish you lived nearer, because
I do.
we could spend hours on here doing
No,
this. I
you
know.
know what, Vanessa, I do love you to pieces, and we don't talk as often as I'd like because
No,
we've got such busy lives.
fair
But
enough.
whenever we do talk, I know that we are on the same page, and I know that you are driven by a desire to help people and to do good, and that's what drives me. But you know, there just isn't enough time in our life, and you know, I'm not getting any younger, and I do want to be, you know, living my own life as well. I do actually go abroad quite a lot. I work from abroad though. So like now I'm in my own front room, but I've got a little apartment in Gran Canaria that we bought before my husband died. And like last in the winter now, the plan is to spend 3 months there.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of what I do, I can do wherever I am.
Which is a good
But
thing, because you need that.
I do, and I need to be able to let go of some of the guilt that I feel when I am away, because you know I'm still working. You know, with a bloody phone. I mean, it comes everywhere, doesn't it? So, but I do want some time back where I can switch off. It's difficult, but I have to find that. When you speak to me in 4 years, if I'm still saying this, Vanessa, please replay this to me. Because you know my kids are saying, you know, you can't carry on like this, Monk. You need to get some because I batter their ears with all this. I try not to, but it's it's tough. But I'm hoping that, as our team has grown now, that I can be involved with the key cases, but perhaps not with all the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
And I've got an amazing chief exec, a fantastic team, we're all working, really hard, and we are all dealing with a lot of trauma. So they're all under pressure as well. So we need funding, really, and we need more people. But it will come. It will come.
I will put the website so where people can make donations, because I love what you do, and you've got that voice, and if you can help share that voice so that actually people can come out and actually talk about and be listened to. Because one of the things I do say is, especially in the sector that I'm in, I always say children's choices, children's voices. Wow. I always say that, and if I've always said that, and if we don't give that to them, what's the point?
You're dead right. That's when abuse thrives.
Yeah.
If you do not listen.
Yeah.
Whether it's a child or whether it's a victim.
Yeah.
Then they are being failed. And really that, the thing I say constantly is the key is communication. For everything, communication is the key. And many of these cases that are being where victims are being failed by the police is ultimately down to a lack of effective communication. Yeah. So much can be put right if you speak to somebody as a human being, if you keep them in the loop, if you communicate why something can't go any further. All too often that doesn't happen. The victim's code says that a victim should get a regular update from the officer in the case. I'm not sure of the time scale. I think it's once a month, but that never happens. They're lucky to get an officer in the case because officers are moved around so frequently. That again re-traumatizes a victim because it's like starting from scratch again with somebody else.
Yeah. There's no continuity.
No, it's no consistency, and it when that happens 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and a case takes 3, 4, 5 years, the victim is reliving this every day, and they're the things that is not about a conviction. That is about treating a victim with respect and actually with a knowledge and understanding of what trauma does. Yeah. So those things are where I would like the changes to be made. That the prosecution really depends on the evidence up to a point, but it also depends on the determination of the officer to investigate. Yeah. So it's complex, but I do think communication and respect and kindness can go a long way to helping a victim recover. I really do.
Almost like we need to learn those skills again, don't we, as human beings? And they are human values, aren't they?
They are, Vanessa. It's simple.
Yeah.
Do as you would be done by. If this was your daughter or your sister, would you deal with this case in the same way?
Totally.
Really, and if you can say, yes, I would, then I would say, then you're doing your best. Yeah. If you say, no, I wouldn't, and you know that you do other things, well, then that's where you need to, you need to change.
And re-look at what you're doing.
Yeah.
I am so grateful that you jumped on here. I'm so grateful. I'm sorry that it's been a mad rush and you've stuffed your lunch down in a
pork pie. I should be at the gym. I should be eating salad instead. I'm filling my face with cherry cake and pork pies.
Well, and wine, mine would be. Wine. Yeah, exactly. Oh, Maggie, I can't thank you enough. You're an absolute dream. I adore you. You know I do adore you. And I'm so grateful that there is someone out there who's actually fighting for these people, because if it wasn't for you, look, just take Amber. Just take Amber. If it wasn't for you, look where she is.
And you know what, Vanessa? that's what keeps me going. You know,
Yeah,
Ruby
good.
and Amber.
Yeah,
If I do nothing else in my life, Amber is a great little mum. She's got a lot on her plate, but she idolizes her kids, and I know that she would have lost her kids. For me, that, you know, I put right what the police did wrong to the best of my ability, and ultimately that's all we can do. Into we can only do our best, but you know, I look at her now and I think she's happy. She loves the kids, and she is recovering. You know, she has come a long, long way, and I know that she will continue to find a voice, and I do believe the time will come when she will speak as herself and not fear what people may say. But I don't think that's yet.
no, it will come, but
but
it
it
will
will
be in
come.
the next chapter. But at the moment,
Yeah,
she just needs to actually
yeah,
think about that she's had a voice, having a voice now, and that's the bit.
yeah,
That's the next step for her.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Maggie, thank you so much. I'm so super grateful. I'm hoping you're going to get to go on holiday soon.
I am. I'm going in about 3 weeks to my son. I'm going to visit. Well, he lives here with me, but he's away, so I'm going to spend about a week with my son. And I'm going to try and make that a holiday. But there's always, you know, it's like,
Yeah,
the internet is, you know, a blessing in some ways because I can go and do it from the sunshine, but in another way, it's always pecking at your head.
and you never stops, does it?
It never stops, Vanessa. No. You know, when I was in the police, like, you know, you'd go home, the computer was at work,
Yeah.
and you couldn't open it.
Oh.
Now, wherever you are, you've got that little box there, and you go, I don't have notifications on, but it's still there and it's chipping away.
It's very addictive, very addictive. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. I super appreciate it, and
My pleasure.
I love you to bits. Thank you.
My
So
pleasure,
much.
Vanessa. Absolutely lovely to talk to you.